There we go. Hi everyone. Sorry for being slightly late this evening. The weather's been absolutely atrocious. Um, can everyone hear me at the moment? Hopefully all of you can. As you can see, I've not even had a chance to change out of my clothes from work, but there you go. Um, I hope everyone's okay this evening. We have started slightly later, so apologies for that, but we'll still go for the full hour as normal. Um, but we'll give it a few minutes or so, as we always do, um, just sort of let people sort of roll in, really. But how are all of you this evening? I hope you're all well. I hope you're all staying warm because the weather's been absolutely atrocious. I was just saying, it was really pouring down with rain on my way back. I think I even saw some glimpses of lightning. So not particularly fun at all. That's even more reason why hopefully you're at home where you're safe, out of the rain, and you can tune in to another exciting study squad with yours truly, Professor NK. Because a few more people have joined us this evening. Don't be afraid to say hello. Do pop a hello in the chat. It'll be great to hear from all of you, whether you're new viewers or returners. While we wait for a few more people to join us this evening, I am just going to do a little bit of editing in terms of the stream settings just to make it a bit more fluid. But by all means, do say hello. Today's going to be another exciting session. It's going to be a continuation of last week's, which was all focused on UCAS and all focused on university applications, because I know that's coming up for a lot of you. And even for those of you who aren't actively applying, for those of you who are at GCSE and are starting to think a little bit about university, it would be great if you tuned in as well, because you might get some really useful advice from today's session. So I'm just going to change a few things. Let's see. Can everyone hear me at the moment? Just a quick thumbs up if you can, just to make sure that before we continue, all our settings are optimized for another exciting study squad. Let's see. Lovely. Okay. Let's have a look. Just changing a few things. And I think we'll get cracking in the next 2-3 minutes or so. We'll give it an extra 2-3 minutes. Okay. Let's see. See, a few more people have joined us this evening. Again, don't be afraid to say hi. It'd be great to hear from all of you. Let's have a look. This should do it. Okay. Rightio, I think that should have done it. Okay. Also, let me just get that PowerPoint loaded up as well. Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay, we've got our PowerPoint sorted. All we need to do is... There we go, excellent. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. I think let's leave it 2 more minutes or so, and then in 2 minutes we'll get started. Hi Samuel, hope you're well this evening. Thanks again for giving everyone the heads up on the later start. That's the annoying thing about weather and traffic, you just can't predict it sometimes. But thank you for that. Thanks for being accommodating. But good to see you here again. Samuel will be our brilliant moderator as always. A few housekeeping rules. So, as always, do make sure to check out some of the other study squads that happen on a weekly basis. So, you can check out Olivia's on maths. That's on a Monday at 5 p.m. You can check out Fliss's on coding. That's a Tuesday at 5 p.m. And you also have yours truly on a Thursday at 5 p.m. Last week and this week was all focused on UCAS and personal statements. Next week, we've got a really exciting session focused on past paper questions. Now, it would be great if some of you all gave some suggestions as to whether I should go over some chemistry past paper questions or biology past paper questions. But essentially, I'm going to talk a little bit about how past papers are a great revision resource and how you can really utilize them to optimize how you study to get much better results. So we're going to be talking about that next week, which is going to be super, super exciting. I can see a few more people rolling in, really, really exciting. So by all means, do say hello. It'd be great to have you participate in another exciting study squad. Yes, it'll be great for all of you to say hello. I am going to give it another couple of minutes or so because I can see a few more people sort of flooding in. So just make yourself comfortable, get a good cup of tea, not coffee because it's much too late for caffeine, or hot chocolate, whatever your pick of drink is. And yeah, we will get started. All about UCAS, university applications, and how to write a personal statement. Because I know some of you who might be writing them at the moment might find it really, really challenging. I know I found it challenging when it came to applying to university. Interestingly enough, I just wrote another personal statement for postgraduate research. So it's quite funny planning this session and doing that around the same time. Actually, when you think about it, trip down memory lane, I suppose. Can everyone hear me at the moment? Everyone can hear me okay? Hopefully so. Hopefully the music's not too loud. I never want it to be the case that you can't hear what I'm saying. Fantastic. Samuel, you said yes, that you can hear me. That's brilliant. I think we will just get started. We'll just get right into it. Again, just a few points. Make sure to check out Olivia and Fliss's study squads on a Monday and Tuesday at 5 p.m. respectively. Also, there will be a survey that Samuel will put in the chat towards the end of the squad this evening. That is a good survey for feedback. It helps us at My Tutor really get an understanding of what it is that you guys want from these study squads so we can improve them in the future. You also have the chance to win a £20 voucher. So by all means, that's loads of incentive to fill out the survey, so make sure that you do. So let's get started then. So we're going to go straight to the PowerPoint. I'm just going to load it up. And without further ado, let's see, that should appear on your screens. Let's see, should appear on your screens right about now. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? I'm hoping so. And sometimes PowerPoint decides to be, there we go. Excellent, that's what I wanted to see. So, Applying for university and UCAS. Now, as always, I'm a huge fan of participation, so don't be afraid to answer as many questions as you can in the chat. So by all means. And even if you're watching this retrospectively, by all means, feel free to pause the video, answer the question out loud, and then continue playing. So, I think last week we recapped a few reasons why people wanted to go to the university. And I think that the really important takeaway messages that we got in terms of that recap was, firstly, it's important that your reasons are your own. So it should never be the case that you feel as students that the only way to develop as an individual or in terms of your career is by going to university. Always remember that university is one avenue that you can take. You can go straight into work, you can go into apprenticeships instead and sort of train and be on the job at the same time. So there are plenty of avenues out there, especially nowadays. It's just a case of you exploring them. And if you decide to explore them, always know that there are people that you can approach. Maybe your parents may know of someone who followed a similar path, or you may know friends or family members that again have done something very similar. Just remember to do as much reading as you can so that you know whatever decision that you make is well informed, and you also know that it's best for you. But going to university has loads of advantages as well. You can socialise, you can meet different people, and you can learn about specific courses that you might find of interest. For me, that was pharmacy, and I actually found that 3 years after finishing my degree, I now want to go back to university to do some more postgrad stuff while still working. So in saying that, when you really find your passion, you're just driven to follow through with it. And I think that's the main thing that I want all of you to sort of take away from that. We also talked a little bit about why you should pick certain courses. Now, there are a variety of courses out there, and I wouldn't even be surprised if universities and other institutions are constantly making new courses. With that in mind, there's such a variety to choose from. And so some of the techniques that we discussed involved looking at what the course offers in terms of learning objectives and seeing whether that aligned with some of your passions and some of the things that you find interesting. We also discussed talking to maybe friends who may be older that are applying for university or have already applied to university. I suppose that would be more appropriate. You can talk to, again, family members, parents, teachers. A lot of universities also have a really useful live chat service where you can be paired with a current student at that university, and they can talk to you a little bit about what their experience has been. And that's actually quite great because you then get a real life sort of walkthrough as to what their student experience has been with regards to their course. So, like I mentioned with regards to whether to go to university or not in the first place, you have plenty of opportunity with regards to deciding what to study. Because going to university is a commitment. It's 3 or 4 years, in some instances 5, depending on the degree itself. So just make sure that the course that you're choosing is for you. And you'll figure that out through wider reading and wider research. Don't feel pressure to pick a particular course because someone suggested it. At the end of the day, it's your university experience. And so that's really the important thing. That's one I really want to emphasize. And in terms of going to a university, so which university to go to, again, last week we talked a little bit about some of the thoughts that some students have. So we had some students suggesting that they would apply somewhere because perhaps their parents had suggested that this institution is a good institution, for instance. It could very well be that you've done some reading about the Russell Group universities and you want to go to that type of university based on its standing. You may look at university league tables. I know there's at least 2 or 3 websites that are recognized with regards to what a good university is. What I would encourage all of you to do is when you're doing your reading and when you're doing your research, look at which institutions specialize in an area that you find of interest. So I know a good few of my friends at sixth form applied to Loughborough because Loughborough has a really supportive school of engineering, and a lot of my friends found engineering quite interesting. So for those of you who maybe don't necessarily want to apply to a London university, there are other options elsewhere in the country. So again, don't be afraid to do a good bit of research, to contact universities, and just to read their perspectives on their websites, respectively, about the course and what the course actually offers. Some courses will offer a year in industry at some institutions and not necessarily at others. So that can be more reason to shortlist specific universities. We also talked about the importance of picking universities with a range of grades. So it isn't really advisable to pick 5 universities with the same sets of grades. It's generally more advised to perhaps pick 2 universities on the higher end, maybe 2 universities on the lower end, and 1 somewhere in the middle. Okay, apply to places with a range of grades, grades that you feel confident that you will be able to achieve at the end of year 13 on results day. And again, just to reinforce the point, your deadlines are super important. Now, last week was the beginning, well, I guess the middle of November, and we're essentially at the end of November now, so time really does fly. Now, for those of you who have not applied for Oxbridge or medicine, your deadline is the 25th of January 2023 at 6 o'clock in the evening. So please make sure that your application is complete well in advance. Now, today's session is focused all on personal statements. With that in mind, as you can imagine, I think for most students, personal statements tend to be the rate limiting step, in the sense that getting feedback from teachers or even writing and drafting it in the first place can be a little bit slow and can be challenging. Teachers have other commitments, and you're also juggling revision in year 13. So that is something that can be quite challenging. But hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll have a bit more confidence in how to write a personal statement, things to look out for. I actually have a few examples of personal statements of what's deemed to be a good one and what's deemed to be a not so good one, just so you can avoid some of those classic sort of traps that some students fall into when it comes to preparing university applications. So when you're applying through UCAS, firstly, they'll ask you for your personal details, and it's super important that you fill in all this information accurately. So your first name and your last name and your email address. Now, this is where I'll make the point to say that if you have an email address that seems less than professional, now would be a great time for you to change that email address, to make a new one, one that is a little bit more professional. So I remember from year 9 to year 11, or year 12 even, my email address was an amalgamation of my first name and the last name of an anime character, because I was big on anime when I was at school, still am. But as you can imagine, an admissions team, when you're applying for a higher institution of education, may not look too favourably on an email address that seems slightly childish. So if you have an email address and you're looking at it and you think, actually, this was funny or amusing when I was younger, but it's not amusing for applying to university, now would be a great time to change it. A simple email address, such as your last name, and then maybe the initial of your first name, and then maybe a date of birth or something like that, is an email address that tends to be more than acceptable. So that's something that I would point out there. Now, with regards to passport information, I would say that in terms of advice, UCAS is slightly vague regarding visas. And I suppose in light of Brexit as well, this is also more so important. So if you do need a student visa to study in the UK, then select yes. If you're a home student and you don't need a student visa, then I would just say no. So thanks UCAS for making it easy to fill in that information. If you are in doubt though, do seek advice from the team at your school that are focused on the admissions process when it comes to all of you applying for university. So that's the advice I'd have there on with regards to UCAS. I can see a few more people have joined us this evening. Hello, welcome to our study squad on admissions for university. Today's session is going to be all about personal statements. So if you do have any questions, by all means, just drop them down and I will answer them all towards the end. Now, with regards to student support, one of the things to consider as well is how your degree will be funded. Now, 80% of students generally use a loan to pay for the degree. So the student loan company, I suppose, is the most well-renowned student loan company. Well, I guess loan service, I should say. Their website, if you just Google SLC, I think it's the first thing that crops up. Now, SLC offers a variety of support, so beyond just the undergraduate fees for the course, they also offer bursaries if you feel so you might need more financial aid. They also offer maintenance loans as well, which you can also use if you feel as though you may benefit from extra finance during your undergraduate degree. So do look there because there is lots of support with regards to funding your undergraduate experience. Additionally, there are also government grants that are available for students from low-income households, and there's also sponsorships through the Army, the NHS, and some private companies. So one of my friends from university who did medicine, he was in the RAF reserves, and I'm fairly certain that some of his, if not all of his degree was funded. So if that does apply to you, do look into that, because that is definitely something to take advantage of if you are in the Army, the NHS, or the RAF, etc. Alternatively, what you could do is you could also get a part-time job for extra spending money. That's what I did. So in my second year of university was when I applied to be a tutor on the MyTutor platform. I actually saw a MyTutor poster in the library at Durham. I thought it looked really interesting. I'd actually spent second year in a volunteering scheme for primary school students. And the year before, I had done some volunteering on tutoring one-on-one A-level biology students for students in the local area close to Durham University. And from there, I just sort of built up my tutoring portfolio from there. So if you are interested in education, then getting a part-time job with MyTutor, I cannot recommend enough because it does give you a good sense of flexibility. But if you already have experience in other sectors, so if you already had a part-time job in retail, for instance, and you want to continue with that, then look around where it's close to your university or close to your accommodation and see what options are also there with regards to that. The other thing as well that I'll point out with regards to student support is for students who are less abled. Unfortunately, not all university buildings are entirely equipped to meet the needs of students that might need more support. If you let UCAS know in your application, that can help universities know. But then in doing your reading, hopefully you'll be able to identify universities that will be able to support you if you do require the extra support as well. If you get invited to interviews as well, that's also an opportunity for you to ask during that interview. I know a lot of students think that interviews are for universities to see whether you'd be a good fit, which in some respects is true, but interviews are an opportunity for you as well to see whether they're a good fit to you. particularly if you do need more support. And if you feel so that university isn't able to give you that support, then that isn't necessarily the best institution for you. So do keep that in mind. There's nothing stopping you from asking those types of questions in the content of an interview. So like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to choosing your courses, let's say you've picked 6 or 7 of a similar type of course, and you've then decided, okay, well, where do I pick? When it comes to UCAS, you have your firm choice, you have your insurance choice, and then you have 3 other choices. Now, your firm choice is your first. So that is you saying, when you've got all your offers, the one you pick is you then saying, assuming that I then get these grades that they've offered me, so they've offered me a place contingent on the grades that they have stated, then if I get those grades, then automatically I will then attend that university. Your insurance choice is then, if unfortunately you don't meet the grades of your firm offer, then your insurance is then where you would then go to automatically if you missed your firm. This is why it's so important that you then pick courses from different institutions with a range of grades. Because let's say, for instance, your firm gives you an offer that is dependent on achieving A star AA, and on results day you only get AAA. In some instances, they may waive the A star, but not always. In some instances, you may miss your firm. If your insurance also has a requirement of A star AA, it's not really an insurance choice because it doesn't assure you a university place if you miss those initial grades of the firm. So what I would stress all of you to do is, when you are shortlisting courses from different institutions, please make sure that you pick places that have a range of grades. So as to where you can find that information, on any university's prospective page where they talk about the entry requirements, but you can also find it on UCAS. You can see what the typical offer is, what the typical grades are for admission onto that course. So please make sure that you pick a range of grades to ensure that by missing your firm, you still have an insurance. Not that if you miss your firm, by default, you also miss your insurance. Something else to keep in mind. I can see that Samuel said, yes, very true. I'm glad you agree with me on that one. Again, remember that your university experience is incredible, but it's important that you enjoy it, and it's important that you are in an environment that supports you so that you can thrive as much as possible. And if you feel so the institution can't give you the level of support that you need, then don't feel pressure to go there because of its standing in a league table, for instance. At the end of the day, it's your university experience as students. So it's incredibly important that you go to somewhere that works best for you. Now, with regards to applying for UCAS, there's also a section that refers to employment choices. Now, the employment section is optional because a lot of you may not have part-time jobs. School leavers aren't generally expected to have work experience outside of perhaps the context of a Year 10 or Year 11 work experience scheme that you may have participated in during your GCSE year. Now, medicine, dentistry, vet schools, pharmacy, nursing are slightly different to this rule because a lot of those institutions tend to like to see applications from students who have actively sought work experience that is related to the course that they're applying for, and have demonstrated that through that work experience they have confirmed that these vocational courses in healthcare are definitely ones that they want to pursue because it is a commitment. I don't know whether I mentioned this last week, but I'm actually taking on a role as a lead haematology and oncology pharmacist at my trust, which I realise is going to be further reading, so well beyond what I currently know about those fields of haematology and oncology. But it's exciting because I know that I have the opportunity to learn more from much more experienced pharmacists at other hospitals, and I also have support from specialists that I'll be working with. And I realise that that's a commitment, but it's a commitment that I'll enjoy. That said, for those of you who are interested in a particular field, particularly one maybe similar to mine, or medicine, or nursing, or dentistry, all of those will require further learning as you progress throughout your career. So do make sure that you do try and get some form of work experience, ideally one where you get to see what happens day in, day out, just to really confirm that this is what you want to do. Now, I only mention healthcare because that's the field I'm in, but I'm sure the same would apply to something like law as well, where the law is constantly changing and evolving in some respects. And so there'll be more learning and reading on a regular basis. Now, we're halfway through, which leads us nicely to personal statements, to writing personal statements. Now, I've already talked a little bit about how I found writing a personal statement really, really challenging. I'm sure if I went through my really old hard drives, I could find one folder called Nke's personal statement for uni, and there are probably about 15 different drafts in there, and I'm not exaggerating. As a quick show of hands, for those of you who have tuned in this evening, how many of you find or found writing a personal statement challenging? Roughly how many drafts did you end up having by the end, at the point that you actually submitted your application? It'd be really interesting to see what some of your experiences were. Because you never know, you do get the one person who's lucky enough to say, oh yeah, it only took one, one attempt. So you never really know. I think I definitely had a good 14, 15 different drafts. And it's absolutely fine that you do, because you realise the first time you write something, the second time you read it, you think, I could change this, I can make this more concise, I can make this less repetitive. So, it'd be really interesting to see what some of you have said in terms of applications and how often you have drafts. If you can't necessarily think right now or even type a response, don't worry about it. Just hold on to that answer for now as we continue through this part of the presentation. So this is a quote taken from James Seymour, who is a director of marketing and student recruitment at Gloucester. I always butcher this. Gloucester. At that university. Sorry. But essentially what James says is he points out that your personal statement is a chance to demonstrate your enthusiasm and commitment and show universities what value that you can add. In the vast majority of cases, universities are finding ways to make you an offer, not reject you. And the personal statement is your chance to make that decision easier for them. If you really think about it, there is no university without students, whether they're undergraduate or postgraduate, whether they're school leavers or mature students, it doesn't matter. There is no institution without students to teach. So universities put loads and loads of money into research, into development, to improve the university experience for all of you prospective applicants. What you want to do in your personal statement is really show off that glowing personality that you have and really demonstrate to the university why you're a good fit for the university, what value you can offer, and why you're interested in doing this particular course. So that's something that's hopefully motivating for all of you. Universities are not looking for a reason to reject you. They only really reject you if they feel as though your application demonstrates that you don't quite meet the requirements, but they're quite looking for that particular course or for that particular university. So a few top tips from me. In your personal statement, make sure that you explain the reason for your choice and how it fits in with your aspirations for the future. So let's say, for instance, you decide to apply for a degree in architecture. It could very well be that you find architecture interesting because growing up, you've always found the way that different buildings are sort of designed, you've always found that quite interesting, particularly buildings that have slightly more character. Okay, without sounding like a cliche, maybe the Eiffel Tower, for instance, or the Tower of London, or the Burj Khalifa. There's a variety of choices. It could very well be that you read a book at one point, and in reading that book, that helped consolidate your passion for it. So that's something else to say. Now, at your stage, you may not know what your aspirations are for the future. You may do, you may not. If you do know what your aspirations are for the future, sometimes adding in how applying for this particular course fits into that demonstrates to universities that you thought long and hard about why you want to apply for this course and how this course will help you achieve your wider goals. Now, interestingly enough, much earlier on as a study squad, we talked about goals. We talked about SMART goals, and we talked about how our goals need to be specific, and they have to be attainable, and they have to be relevant to us. So if you know that a specific goal you have is to take on a specific role, then for you, applying for a specific course is relevant to you because it's relevant to you achieving and attaining that goal. You can give examples of any related academic or work experience. So if you've done any work experience in a particular area, so we've talked a little bit about healthcare. I've mentioned law as well. I do know that some law firms will offer work experience if there is capacity. You can give examples of what you did there, what you learned, and how that then feeds back into why you're passionate about applying for this course. What I would say with regards to giving examples of work experience that you've done, it's not just a case of listing the work experience that you've done. Because listing work experience doesn't at all tell a university how doing X number of work experience placements makes you a good fit for the university and makes you a good fit for the course. Because actually, you can do 5 different work experiences and learn nothing, but you could go to 2 work experiences and learn a lot and get a real insight as to what it is you're applying for. So even if you list 1 work experience or 2, go into detail about how that informed your decision and why that makes what you're doing now much more viable in terms of an application. You can also show that you know what the course will involve. So if you read the prospectus for a particular course from a particular university, you can mention that the structure of it is of interest to you if it's taught in a specific way. Now, that being said, you only have 1 personal statement for your UCAS application, and that personal statement is sent to all of your 5 choices. So be very careful when it comes to talking about knowing what the course will involve, particularly if it's about a certain teaching style. If one university mentions an integrated approach, but another university mentions a modular approach, if in your personal statement you then say outright that the integrated approach is something that's of interest to you, to an admissions team from the other university, they'll think, well, we're not a good fit then because we don't offer that type of teaching. And so they wouldn't find that teaching effective or appropriate for them. So that's something else to keep in mind. You could also demonstrate who you are by listing positions that you've held or memberships of teams, or societies, and interests and hobbies. Again, if you're going to mention positions that you may hold, so let's say whether you're head boy or head girl, maybe you're a prefect, maybe you're a head of house if you have a house system at school, then talk about what you learned from those roles. So it could be you learned about independence, taking responsibility, being an advocate for a much wider group of people, effective communication. ultimately you have the flexibility to pick and choose what positive aspects you obtain from taking on those roles, and then feeding that back into why this makes your application much stronger for a particular course. Like I mentioned before, do make sure that you are consistent in your UCAS choices, because it will be difficult for an admissions tutor to take you seriously if your choices are completely different. If you do have different choices, you need to explain that in your statement. Although I'll say that is something else that you should take with caution. So one thing that I heard a lot, and I still hear a lot, that actually annoys me a fair bit, is if someone applies to, let's say, medicine, for instance, they'll say, well, pharmacy is a good backup. Firstly, from a healthcare standpoint, medicine and pharmacy are two totally different things. As a doctor, for instance, your role in an MDT is different to the role of a pharmacist in an MDT, and the two are not interchangeable. So to say, well, I want to do this, but do this as a backup, there's a false equivalence there, because it's not really a backup. Again, as a pharmacist, you'll say that I'm slightly biased, but pharmacy has grown as well in terms of a profession. It's not about competing with the medical field. It's purely about recognizing that our medical colleagues are skilled at what they do, and they bring a certain quality and expertise to the table. Pharmacists do the same. So just keep that in mind. Also make sure that you keep it clear and concise. So UCAS admissions are increasingly paperless. You never want an admission tutor to have to almost trawl through reels and reels of information as well. I can see that Samuel has put the link for the survey for tonight's squad in the chat. So do make sure that before you leave, you do fill in that survey, because you do have a chance to win a £20 voucher. So do make sure to do that. So here's an example of a really good, a good personal statement. You can see there, you might want to pause if you're watching this back retrospectively, but you can see that the first section we've highlighted that there's a good understanding of the course, and any examples are used in a supportive manner. They're not used as a listing manner. In contrast, you can see that here they've listed A-levels, but that's not needed because your A-levels will be listed in your application. Here, it's quite vague. This example is actually quite dated. Spelling and grammar is also important, so do make sure that you do a once over or twice over. Having your teacher having a look at it, there's no harm in it. If anything, they should do, and you should ask them to, just to ensure that your spelling and grammar isn't missed at all. So ultimately, do make sure that you're clear and concise. Do make sure that you use positive, powerful words like achieved and developed to demonstrate your enthusiasm. Make sure that you try and avoid grandiose language. Okay, one of the most common misconceptions is that the more eloquently that you speak, the more intelligent that you are, and that isn't the case. You're just more eloquent. But sometimes the most effective form of speech is the simplest form of speech. Please utilize that when it comes to writing your personal statements. Insert a personal touch as well, but try to avoid humour or chatty responses. Again, this is a formal application, so do write in prose. Please don't use any text language. I have seen that a couple of times before. And use any evidence of your learning and growth, and like I mentioned before, expand on that. Talk about why that makes you a much better candidate. Additionally, also plan the statement. You could try and divide the statement into 5 or 6 paragraphs. And for those of you who are applying for 2023 admission, you can also refer to challenges you faced during the pandemic. There is also benefit in that because that shows resilience. Particularly whether that's to do with your mental health, other commitments, or even with regards to how you approach your revision to ensure that your grades didn't suffer. As you can probably expect, don't waffle, don't over-exaggerate, don't come across as pretentious, and don't try to include your life story. Try not to start with cliches like I've always wanted to be a and then blank. Okay. Also, don't be tempted to buy a personal statement or copy it because plagiarism software is really sophisticated. And if you're caught, your application automatically gets disqualified. There is also the chance that you may be barred from applying for that year. So it really isn't worth it. Please take the time to plan in advance and to write your own personal statement. I know that might seem like an obvious thing, but I have included it in that because it does happen every year. In terms of references for school leavers, it will probably be a teacher, and maybe your form tutor, for instance, and maybe a designated teacher. Or for applicants who've already left school, you can also use an old teacher as a reference. A lot of schools are provided with a buzzword, which can be used when setting up a UCAS application as well. Now, if you're an individual applicant and you aren't necessarily affiliated with a school, or it's been a while, you'll have to supply your own reference as well. Do ensure that you pick professionals with a strong knowledge of your academic history. That could be a teacher, like we mentioned before. It could be a previous employer or an organisation that you volunteered for. Because I mentioned auto cancellation before, if you put a family member or a friend down as your reference, it can auto disqualify you from applying. So please don't do that. And finally, you always have guidance from my tutor. So I know in this session there might not be loads and loads of questions, but you're always more than welcome to reach out to my tutor because there are admissions tutors on my tutor that are specialised in Oxbridge applications or with medicine applications. I myself applied for or studied pharmacy, so by all means, if it comes to pharmacy application, then by all means you can reach out to me as well. I can give you a bit of advice there also. But we do have admissions tutors that focus exclusively on that at my tutor, so do reach out. There is more than enough support there also. And finally, just be proactive. Seek guidance from your form tutors, other teachers, or admissions tutors from my tutor. Ultimately, sooner rather than later. And that is today's session. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, apologies that we started off a good 10 minutes late. Weather and traffic is always a little bit unpredictable. I think what I'll do next time is take my laptop with me such that even if the weather is quite poor, I can set up so that we can start at 5 o'clock on the dot for another exciting study squad with you all. I will hang around for 10 minutes or so, so if anyone does pop in and does have any questions about applying to university or about personal statements, then by all means they are more than welcome to drop a question in the chat. Like I mentioned last time, do make sure that before you leave the study squad tonight, you do click on the link that Samuel has popped in the live chat. Samuel, thank you for that. Where you do have the chance to win a £20 voucher, which is really, really exciting. You could probably use it for some stationery that you can use to apply for your university applications. Also make sure to check out the other study squads that happen on a Monday and a Tuesday. So you can join Olivia on a Monday at 5 p.m, all focused on maths. You can join Fliss on a Tuesday at 5 p.m, all focused on coding. And you can rejoin me on a Thursday at 5 p.m, all about study skills. The last two sessions have been focused exclusively on the UCAS process and about university applications. But next week, we will be going back to a few more study skills. I'm going to focus on past papers and really utilising past papers and exam resources to really boost your skill set as a student when it comes to revision. So do join that session as well. And if you do know anyone else who might find that useful, then by all means do invite them along as well. There is a link through the chat, so you can just go to the chat and you'll be able to sort of find a link where you can sign up. There is also a link which you can use to get a reminder for the study squad. So if you would like to join, but you think you might forget before next Thursday, there is also a link that you can click on, pop your email in, and we will give you a reminder so you can be there on time, all relaxed with a nice cup of hot chocolate or tea or water or juice, whatever your fancy is, for another exciting study squad. But with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the PowerPoint and I will hang around for, well, I suppose 7 minutes now. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, then by all means, they are more than welcome to ask. There we go. So, almost the end of the week. Very, very exciting. I'm actually off tomorrow. I have a few admin things to get involved with to sort out. But yes, it'll be refreshing to have a day when I'm not at work. As much as I enjoy it, it is important to get time off every so often. So that's something else that I will say. Let's see. So. Well, I can see a few people drifting off, so it could very well be that I hang around for maybe not 6 minutes, maybe a bit less or so, which is again absolutely fine. But yes, this has been it's been really lovely so far. These study squad sessions, I really enjoyed them. It's quite funny when I first started them. Um, I can tell, and actually, I'm actually avoiding going back and watching the first one. My latency was everywhere. The delay between me speaking and actual comments popping up on the, well, I guess that's going to be left for me, but I'm pointing right. Um, Honestly, the delay was slightly nerve-wracking, but I think with each session we've gotten better, um, which I'm happy with, definitely. And yeah, we still have a few sessions left to go. We have 3 more sessions left. So it's definitely going to be interesting. It'd be really great if my tutor continues these, especially since we've gotten feedback that a lot of you have found them useful. So it'd be great to continue them. Okay, I think that is everyone. Everyone sort of tuned in for today. Everyone started to head off. So with that, I will log out myself. But this has been another study squad. I've been your host, Professor NK, and this has been part 2 of a session focused entirely on UCAS applications and personal statement writing. Do make sure to check in next Thursday at 5 p.m. It's going to be focused entirely on past paper questions and really utilising exam resources so that you can be the best student that you can be. So it'd be great to see some of you there. It'd be great to see more of you there as well. So hopefully I'll see you all next Thursday. Have a lovely evening. Stay safe. Stay out of the rain. Don't want to catch a cold. And otherwise, I will see you next Thursday. But take care until then.